Whence are ye, and whither, O fowl of our fathers? What field have you looked on, what acres unshorn? What land have ye left where the battle folk gathers, and the war helms are white o'er the paths of the corn? What tale do ye bear of the people uncraven, where amidst the long hall shadows sparkle the spears? Where aloft on the hall ridge now flappeth the raven, and singeth the song of the nourishing years? Hello and welcome to Liam's Lyceum. I'm your host Liam, aka Hambar, and today I'll be doing a spoiler-free review of William Morris's The Story of the Glittering Plain. The Story of the Glittering Plain, which is also known as The Land of Living Men, or The Acre of the Undying, and it has a really long name, but it's generally called The Story of the Glittering Plain, is a novel by William Morris from 1891 with a rather particularly noted version in 1894 that was illustrated by Kelmscott Press. Now, this is technically one of William Morris's prose romances, which is what we would today call an early fantasy novel. In fact, this is the first of Morris's prose romances that is set in a secondary world. I have not done reviews for the first two, but I have previously read them, and those are The House of the Wolfings and The Roots of the Mountains, which are both more historical settings, but have a bit of magic in them. And again, Morris called these all prose romances, which is his kind of like attempt to revive medieval romance, as he was associated with things like the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood. So the story itself is actually about a young man named Hallblythe, one of the people of the Raven. He meets some, weary travelers searching for the Glittering Plain, and not wanting to rest until they find it. Their attitude is almost fey, and they seem bewitched, either by their own sorrow or the hope of rest, or a mix of the two. So Hallblythe is set to marry the hostage of the people of the Rose, who finds herself unwillingly going off to a land far from home, and Hallblythe following after her. That is essentially the plot of the story, is Hallblythe trying to find the hostage. In this process, he is tricked because of his quick trust, right? Everyone here is assumed to be trustworthy, and so when he goes into Elfland, essentially, right? I say that figuratively. He is bamboozled. So, again, this one is a secondary world, and it's pretty cool, and it involves mostly what the name of the story is, which is the Glittering Plain, the Land of Living Men, the Acre of the Undying, which definitely gives me some Middle-earth Undying Lands vibes. There's even a quote here that says, "For this is the land of the Undying King, who is our Lord and our gift-giver, and to some he giveth the gift of youth renewed, and life that shall abide here, the gloom of the gods." So it's kind of like a Fields of Elysium thing, and then like Undying Lands from Tolkien's works. This one is also much shorter than the first two books. Morris's prose is very beautiful. It's very written in a very what he deems a medieval fashion. It's very full of archaisms. I felt like it was, at this point though, it's still much easier to read than, say, Old or Middle English. And considering it's shorter, in a secondary world, some people might like to start with this one, which is why I'm doing a review for it. They're all free, by the way, since these books came out forever ago. They're in the public domain. So this story, though, is about a beautiful, idyllic version, sometimes cozy, sometimes eerie, and it's kind of somewhat fairy tale feeling, that, makes it seem like anything could happen to great joy or much grief. It's just got this very magical feeling that Morris is, well, it's Morris's flavor, to be honest. I don't find anyone that does Morris better than Morris, though Tolkien was a huge fan of Morris, which is why these stories are super important, because Tolkien essentially, wanted to be Morris, but I'm pretty sure he himself admitted that, he isn't as good as Morris. And so it's pretty interesting when we find like Hallblythe. He seems to find himself helping others gain happiness while only sorrow follows after him since he can't seem to find the hostage. And this is explored with this cast of characters, which are pulled, again, that feels like straight from folktale. They have names like Sea Eagle, Puny Fox, and the three men and the king and his daughter. I also thought this was a very interesting note here, since this is a secondary world. In the first two books, the bad guys are essentially Huns, and the good guys are Goths, basically, right? Which is Morris's. Well, he's part of the nationalistic late 19th century, so Goths are good because they're Germanic, just like the English, right? And so in this case, since it's not our world, he kind of plays with this differently, right? So instead of essentially being racist, he says it's not race that's the problem, it's culture. And he particularly, there's a quote from one of the characters. He says, well, I think it's a ravager from the sea, and he says, "But tell me," said Hallblythe, "wilt thou also wax evil as thou growest old?" And he says, "Maybe not," said Fox, looking hard at him, "for in my mind it is that I may be taken into another house and another kindred, and amongst them I shall be healed of much that might turn to ill." And so he's basically saying, if I was raised better, then I would be better. And in some ways is an argument for nurture over nature. But anyways, I thought it was interesting to see because of the difference, that it seemed like a difference to me, at least, from the first two prose romances. But anyways, this is my review of The Story of the Glittering Plain, which is a great book you should go check out. If you've watched my antique book collection, you've actually seen my 1891 edition of this, the American edition, that is. But anyways, this has been William Williams Lyceum. I'll catch you next time.